a bit of a debate between Christians and Hebrews, and you feel me? I know that
I was gonna see what the Most High was gonna turn to.
Our standpoint, like Hebrews' standpoint, is that salvation is strictly for Jews, for Israel, for the 12. You feel me? But like other people's argument is that wild branches can be grafted in through Christ, through Messiah.
The question would be, who would be the wild branches?
The Gentiles.
Who are the Gentiles?
People who is not black. Like, well, not black, but like people
who aren't Israelites is what you're saying. So
I can point out.
All right. So let me ask you this, right?
You feel me?
Let me ask you this. If I could prove to you that in the Greek, there's 3 definitions for the word Gentile, right?
Yeah.
In the scriptures where it talks about people being saved in the Greek, it's always the word Hellen, right?
And what's Hellen?
Hellen is an Israelite that was Hellenized.
Okay. I
right?
Get you. I get you.
Give me the book. Do you believe in the Apocrypha?
Yes.
Okay. Give me the first Maccabees chapter 6, just real quick, right?
That, the Israelites.
Give me no, he's gonna get that. You give me Romans chapter 11.
So you're saying the Israelites that were scattered and basically forced into other cultures who became Gentiles through their culture, like lost our ways, are the ones.
It literally, I'm not saying it. It literally explains that. There's like Paul specifically was the prophet to the Gentiles, right?
Yeah.
There's every chapter or every book, we would say, right? When he starts a letter, right? He calls them brethren. When we get to the book of Romans, he explains who his brethren are. That's also the chapter where he explains the grafting in, right? So before that, I want to explain why there has to be a grafting in. It started a little bit before him in the same area, Greece, right?
Yeah.
So you know that Christ was a slave to the Romans, right? And his people were enslaved to the Romans, right? Before the Romans were Romans, they were called Greeks. You know what I'm saying? So you heard of Alexander the Greek or Alexander the Great before?
Yeah.
Alexander was basically the chief prince of the Greeks, according to the Bible. He's spoken about in the book of the Maccabees, right? That's one of the reasons they took this book out. But it's in the Catholic Bibles. The Protestants took it out, the Catholics left it in. So if you get a Catholic Bible, you can still find this book. If you were go to a Catholic church, the books that they have in the pew is still going to have this in it. So, Second Maccabees chapter 6. 6 and verse, is it 6 and 9?
6 and 9, yeah, you're right. Yeah, 6 and 9.
It's right here. 6 and, yeah, right there.
You ready?
Yeah, go ahead and read that.
Second Maccabees chapter 6 and verse 9. And whoso would not conform themselves to the manner of the Gentiles shall be put to death.
Read verse 9. Chapter 9 and verse 1.
I'm going to read that again.
Go ahead.
And whoso would not conform themselves to the manner of the Gentiles shall be put to death.
Mm-hmm.
Then might a man have
read 6. Move up to 6.
Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days. So
Sabbath is a day that we have to keep, right? The reason it says neither was it lawful, because in this time period, if you were to read above, just for the sake of time, I'm not going to. But if you were to read from verse 1 on down, there's a king named Antiochus who's above them, right? You can read about him, Antiochus Epiphanes, right? He's one of the grandsons of Seleucus, who is a general of Alexander the Great, right? Alexander dies, which is in the first book of Maccabees, right? And then he gives power to his 12 generals, right? His generals split up the Middle East all the way from Greece to Punjab, India. And it includes Egypt. That's how the white folks got to Egypt, right? That's it was a guy named Ptolemy that was over there doing that stuff. So Antiochus goes and takes Egypt from Ptolemy, and then makes this broad rule, right? Where the Israelites, they can't call themselves Jews, right? Ptolemy also put this rule in place, because when you read down, he's going to be the one enacting birthdays, right? So, but before that, right, Antiochus puts the rule in place. He also has people in Antiochus or in Antioch calling themselves Antiochians, right? Which is where they get the name of calling the people after the places or after the kings and stuff like that. That's why we're Americans now, instead of, like there's no place called Africa America that we could catch a flight to. You know what I'm saying? No place called Black we could catch a flight to. Those are fake names. So, read that.
Neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feasts,
right?
Or profess himself at all to be a Jew.
So he couldn't call himself a Jew. He couldn't keep a Jewish feast day, right? And he couldn't keep the Sabbath, right? So he couldn't be an Israelite. At this time, once you keep reading, like I said, they explain that some of these people were made to call themselves Antiochians. Some of them were called Gentiles, right? When you're a Gentile in a Greek state, the name that you would adopt would be a Greek. So the Greeks or the white Greeks, right? The people like Alexander and Seleucus, Antiochus, and Ptolemy, and all them people, right? They had names for people that they converted, right? They were called Hellenes or Hellenistas, right? If you were to Google Hellenista or were Israelites included in Hellenistas, right? Or were included in the term Hellene, it's going to explain Israelites were Hellenes. It's going to give you the AI overview for that, right? So, because I just did a class on it on our video, right? Like on our YouTube channel. So it's going to give you the AI overview to prove that, right? And then it's going to give you the sources to prove where that comes from. So it proves that we're the Hellenes. The Gentiles that Paul is talking to, the reason he's calling them brothers and stuff like that is because he's talking to actual Israelites. The reason there's no difference between Jew nor Greek is because the Greeks that he's talking to are Jews. There's no difference. He's trying to persuade them to allow those people to come in because through grace, they could be Israelites again. They don't have to be treated as Greeks because they're not circumcised or whatever the Greek custom was that they've been keeping, right? So
that does make sense.
that was the whole point. And I'm gonna, if you got time, I could prove it to you in a couple script, like 3 scriptures. But if not, we could give you fly.
I want to read to you, but I gave him one too. I know you got a bunch.
What you got?
Actually,
You gave him 1 Corinthians 12. Yeah, I was gonna read it.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I do got a slide, but I do appreciate and respect y'all time.
That's a bet. Well, look, we here any. It's up to you if you got time.
You said something about grafting in, correct? Right. So where does that concept or idea even come from?
Being grafted in.
Grafting in, what? Grafting in what? It's talking about olive tree, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So where does that come from? So this is a rhetorical question. I'm gonna give you the answer. All right. Jeremiah 11:16. The Lord called thy name a green olive tree, fair and goodly fruit. With the noise of a great tumult, he hath kindled a fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken. So what it's talking about is Jeremiah 11:6. The whole grafting in process goes back to Jeremiah.
No, what's funny? When Jesus says that I've not come but into the lost sheep of the house of Israel, Jeremiah also is the one that told him that we are lost sheep. Jeremiah 50:6. So it's all reverting back to the Israelites because they're the ones that would become lost. Jeremiah 17:4 says we would discontinue from the heritage God gave us to prove we would become lost sheep. So there will be Israelites that didn't bow the knee to Baal, that would be Jews, right? Niggas like Aharon and shit, right? And then there's brothers that actually fell off, and then they had to come back and be reconverted. That's why the apostles were sent out. That's why there's Israelites on the corner today, right? 1/3 of us is gonna come back, the rest of us is not. But we waiting on the elect to be sealed, and once that happens, everybody else gonna, suffer what they suffer.
Hey, but that makes sense though, right?
It definitely makes sense. Not gonna lie to you.
All praises. We're here every Saturday, bro.
You ain't give us the chance to ask that question.
I do have a question. My sister, she's from the Dominican Republic.
Uh-huh.
Basically,
Simeon.
yes, Indian. But
Shemai
my
one.
question was, what about Ruth and her bloodline? Because she was basically saying without Ruth, Yahusha wouldn't even be.
That's facts. And Ruth was a heathen. She was a Moabite. The thing is, according to the book of Numbers, right? Mothers don't determine the bloodline. So her being a figure isn't significant more, like except for the fact that Jesus might have had really good hair in today's terms.
You know what though? The acceptance of God, even for a heathen, right? Accepting to follow after the Most High God's ways was an example that Ruth gives to any other.
That's the reason she's in the Bible.
Who want to be in submission to the Israelites in the Most High God's ways. That makes sense?
Because a brother could get with a heathen, that's not illegal. He could, and she's an example on what type of heathen to get, how your heathen should treat you, how she should treat your people, and how she should believe in the Most High if you're gonna get with her.
What is to be Gentiles by blood? Who, you feel me? If the argument is like even being grafted in is for the lost sheep of Israel who were lost to other nations.
Their fate is it's a two-way street. There's those that are going to be grafted in, or not grafted in, cleave. We'll take them to the land. Their punishment ain't going to be as harsh. They'll probably be overseers of their people because they're cleaving already. We don't have to punish them for nothing, right? They just going to fall in line, right? So there's those people, and there's the ones that we're going to have to, it says in Revelation chapter 2 that you get a rod of iron to beat them to shivers. You're going to have to beat some people. It says that we're going to give them a double cup, and they're going to have to drink the dregs, right? It tells you that we're going to get the bash babies' heads into the stones, right? So it tells you that whatever they did to us, we're gonna get to do double unto them, right? And all the curses in Deuteronomy 30:7, all the curses that came onto us are gonna go on to those people. So, right. So it's like it's certain things that are gonna happen to them, right? Because we know that there's gonna be parts of them that aren't gonna be righteous. They're gonna be wicked. They're not gonna fuck with us, right? So to speak. It's lucky for the lame. But that's what it is, right? So. It's a two-way street for them too. We all get the same penny. Some people gonna come in at the last moment, right? They gonna see the clouds coming, and then they gonna go put on a dress and a head wrap and a fringe shirt. We all get the same penny. If they decide to profess and repent, they get in too, right? And then it's gonna be those that say, it's aliens, and they gonna go get their gun, and then their head gonna get chopped off. You know what I'm saying? So,
Hey, man, we appreciate your time, man. Of course. Y'all be safe, man.
I'll be good.
We're here every Saturday if you ever got more questions in this exact spot.
That's good.
AHOS